Chapter 8. The answer. Once we found ourselves alone, I asked Anastasia, "What's all the big excitement about some kind of eagle?" "The eagle will be very much needed for the little one," she answered. "For our baby, Vladimir. To play with?" "Yes. The only play has a considerable significance for his future learning and feelings." "I see." I said this, even though I didn't fully understand this business of playing with a bird, even an eagle. "But what were you doing with the cedar? Were you praying, or talking with someone? What happened with you and the cedar, and why did great-grandfather seem so severe when he talked with you?" "Tell me, Vladimir, do you think there is, well, some kind of intelligence out there? Does there exist a mind in the invisible world of the cosmic, in the universe? What do you think?" "I think it's true. You know, even scholars talk about that, as do mediums and the Bible." "What would you say is the best word to describe it? I need to know this so that you and I can agree upon a definition. Say, for example, mind, intelligence, being, forces of light, vacuum, absolute, rhythm, spirit, God." "Well, let's say God. All right, then. Now tell me, does God attempt to communicate with man, what do you think? I do not mean by a voice from heaven, but through people, through the Bible, let us say, to offer a hint on how to be happier." "But the Bible was not necessarily dictated by God." "Well, by whom then, would you say? People could have done that, people who wanted to invent religion. They sat down and wrote it collectively." "You think it is that simple? People just sat down and wrote a book, and thought up narratives and laws? A book that has lasted for millennia and is the most popular and widely read book that has existed to date? Over the centuries, a whole multitude of other books have been written, but few of them can compare with the Bible. What does that mean to you?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Ancient books, of course, have been around for a long time, but most people today prefer contemporary literature, novels, detective stories, and all sorts of inferior stuff. Why is that so?" "Because reading them hardly requires any thinking. In reading the Bible, one is obliged to think at a faster pace, and there are many questions one must answer for oneself, only then will it become clear. It unfolds itself, so to speak, to one's consciousness. If one looks upon the Bible merely as a set of dogma, then reading and memorizing a few commandments is sufficient. But any dogma imposed from without and not grasped by one's inner being precludes taking advantage of the opportunities afforded man as creator." "What questions do we need to answer when we read the Bible?" "To begin with," replied Anastasia, "you might try to figure out why Pharaoh was unwilling to allow the children of Israel to leave Egypt." "Well, what's there to think about? The Israelites were slaves in Egypt. Who would want to let his slaves go? They worked hard and brought Pharaoh a good income. The Bible says that more than once the Israelites brought a plague over the whole land of Egypt. They even killed people's firstborn offspring, along with those of animals. Sorcerers were later burnt at the stake for such acts, but here Pharaoh simply refused to let them go. Now answer the question, where did the Israelite slaves get enough goods and cattle to spend 40 years traveling? Where did they get the weapons to seize and destroy cities along their route? What do you mean, where? Didn't God give them everything? Do you think that was only God's doing? Then who? Man, Vladimir, has full freedom. has the opportunity to make use of all the bright resources God gave him originally, but he can make use of other resources too. Man represents a union of opposites. See, Vladimir, how the sun shines. That is God's creation. It is for everyone. For you and me, for the snakes, the grass, and the flowers. But bees use the flowers to get honey, while the spider's power is to draw poison. Each of them has its own. No bee and no spider can do otherwise. Only man has a wider scope, only man can act in more than one way. One man can rejoice at the first rays of the sun, while another might curse. Man, you see, can be both a bee and a spider. Does that mean God wasn't the only one helping the Israelites? How can you tell, then, what God actually did, as opposed to what was merely attributed to him? When something significant is created through man, Anastasia explained, there are always two opposites at work. A man exercises freedom of choice. Which he will accept more of depends upon his purity and conscious awareness. Well, all right, let's accept that. So, you were attempting to talk with him when you were standing at the base of the cedar? Yes, I wanted him to answer me. And great-grandfather objected? Great-grandfather thought that I was speaking too irreverently, that I was too demanding. You really were demanding, I saw it. You were stamping your feet and pleading. What on earth did you want? I wanted to hear an answer. What sort of answer? You see, Vladimir, God's essence is not in the flesh. He cannot yell down to everyone from heaven, telling them how to live. But he wants things to be fine and whole with everyone, and so he sends his son's people into whose mind and soul he has been able to break through at least to some extent. His sons then go and talk with other people, they speak different languages. Sometimes through words, sometimes with the help of music or pictures, or various actions. Sometimes they are listened to, at other times they are persecuted and killed. Like Christ Jesus, for example. And still, God is sending forth his sons. But as always, it is only some of the people who pause and listen to them, while others who are called do not get the message at all. And they violate the laws of a happy existence. I see. And that's why God will punish mankind by a global catastrophe, some kind of fearful judgment? God never punishes anyone, and he does not need catastrophes. God is love. But that is the way it was planned from the very beginning. Created that way from above. Specific point, one might say, in its unwillingness to accept the essence of truth. Once the elements of darkness manifest in man reach that critical point, in order to avert total self-annihilation, a global catastrophe rushes in which takes away a great many people's lives and crushes the destructive life support system of artificial creation. The catastrophe serves as a lesson to those who are left alive. Following a catastrophe, there is a window of time in which mankind seems to go through a fearful hell. But it is a hell of their own making. It is those who are left alive that fall into this hell. Then for a while, their children survive in a pristine, original state, and they eventually reach a stage one could call paradise. Then they fall away again, and it all starts over again in tears. This has been going on for billions of earthly years. If all this has been inevitably repeating itself for billions of years, what then were you asking for? I wanted to find out how and by what means people could be made wiser without subjecting them to a catastrophe. You see, I have figured out that a catastrophe can be blamed not only on those who do not accept the truth, but also on the absence of a sufficiently effective means of making the truth be seen, of making people alert to the truth. I was asking him to find such a means. To reveal it either to me or someone else. To whom, I feel, is not really important. What is important is that it is there to be seen and that it works. And what did he tell you? What kind of voice does he have? Nobody can tell what kind of voice he has. His answer takes form, as it were, in man's discovery of a thought spontaneously occurring to himself. After all, he can speak only through his particle that is present in every man, and this is already relaying information to every other part of the individual with the help of the rhythm of vibration. Hence the impression arises that man is doing it all by himself, though man himself can actually do a great deal. After all, man is God's likeness. In each man there is a tiny particle breathed into him by God right at birth. He has given half of himself to mankind upon the earth. And the forces of darkness try by whatever means they can to prevent this God-reflected particle from acting out its high purpose to distract man from communication with it, and, through it, with God. It is much easier to fight with a small particle when it is all alone, especially if it is not connected to the basic force of the universe. But if these particles unite amongst themselves in bright aspirations, it is much more difficult for the forces of darkness to hinder them. Even if one single particle, living in just one single man, is in full contact with God, then it is impossible for the forces of darkness to overpower him, to defeat his spirit and mind. That means, I surmised, you appealed to him so that the answer would be given birth in you as to what to say to people, and how to say it, in order to avert a global catastrophe? More or less. And what answer was given birth in you? What words must be spoken? Words, just words alone, pronounced in the usual way, are not sufficient. So many words have been spoken already. Yet humanity on the whole continues to move toward its own perdition. You have no doubt heard words to the effect that smoking is bad, that alcoholic drinks are bad. And this is repeated by a number of sources, including your own physicians, in the language you best understand, yet you still go on doing it. You go on doing it without regard for the deterioration in your own health, and even painful sensations will not restrain either you or many other people from these destructive habits. God says to you, you should not do that. And the message reaches you through pain. And it is not just your pain, but his too, and yet you take painkillers galore and go on doing your own thing as before. Again, you are not interested in thinking about what produces the pain. And all the other higher truths are known to mankind, but they are not being acted upon. Time after time they are rejected in favor of momentary illusory gratifications. It means another way must be revealed to allow them not only to know, but also to feel other kinds of pleasure. Once man has learned he can compare and realize everything for himself, he will unblock access to the God-bestowed particle within him. It is no good simply threatening man with a catastrophe, it is no good simply blaming those who do not accept the truth. Everyone who brings the truth to others must understand how needful it is to seek a more perfect method of explaining it. Great-grandfather agreed with me. But that's not what he said. There was a lot that great-grandfather said that you did not hear. If you were able to communicate with each other without words, why then did you say the words that I did hear? Would you not consider it offensive if people conversed using foreign words you could not understand, given that they knew your language too? Various thoughts ran through my mind, either I believe everything she tells me or I don't. She herself, of course, believes. And it's not just that she believes it, she acts upon it. She takes it all so intensely, maybe I should try to somehow restrain her enthusiasm. So I tried to dampen her fervor by saying, "You know what I think, Anastasia, maybe you don't need to take it so to heart and get so stirred up with your demands, as you were doing at the cedar tree. Even the blue glow or vapor from the cedar came crashing down on you. Your grandfather and great-grandfather were right to be concerned. It's probably very dangerous. If God has not given the answer to any of his sons as to how to explain everything to people most effectively, that means there is no answer. It means that a global catastrophe is the most effective way of getting his message across. Maybe he's even annoyed with you for poking your nose in too far and will punish you so you won't do it again, just like your grandfather said." God is kind. He will not punish. But he isn't speaking to you either. Maybe he's not interested in listening to you, and meanwhile, you're wasting so much energy. He is listening, and he is answering. What is he answering? Is there something new you know now? He has hinted at where to find the answer, where to search for it. He's hinted? To you? So, where is it? In the union of opposites. What does that mean? It happens, for example, when two opposite extremes of human thinking in the Avadamsaka commentary merge into a new dynamic whole. This was behind the philosophy and Kegon, which offer a worldview of even greater perfection, not unlike the models and theories in your modern physics. What was all that? Oh, please do excuse me. I do not know what came over me. I completely forgot myself. What are you apologizing for? You must forgive me. I used words which are completely unfamiliar to you. You're right. They are unfamiliar. I have no idea what they mean. I shall try not to do that again. Please, do not be angry with me. Don't worry, I'm not angry. Only explain in ordinary words where and how you will go about searching for this answer. I certainly cannot do it alone. It can only be known through the joint effort of the divine particles to be found in various people living on the earth, people with opposite modes of thinking and comprehension. Only through a joint effort will it be seen, and then in a dimension invisible to the eye, the domain of thoughts. One can also call it the dimension of the forces of light. It exists between the material world, in which man lives, and God. I shall see it, and many others will, too. Then it will be easier to attain a universal conscious awareness. It will be easier to bring mankind through the dark forces window of time. And the catastrophes will not be repeated. Specifically, what do people need to do right now to make the answer appear? It would be fine if a lot of people could wake up in the morning at a set time, 6 o'clock, say, and think about something good. What specifically they think about is not important. It is important that they come out with bright thoughts. They can think about their children, about their loved ones, about how to make everyone happy. If they could only think 15 minutes like that. And the more people that do that, the quicker the answer will come. The Earth's time zones may be different since the Earth is turning, but the images created by these people's brightenings will merge into a single, clear, fulfilled image of conscious awareness. The simultaneity of bright thoughts will intensify each person's ability many, many times. Oh, Anastasia, how naive you are. Who in their right mind would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning just to think for 15 minutes? People will only get up that early if they have to go to work or have a plane to catch, or are going on a business trip. Anybody else will decide, Leave the thinking to others, I'm going to get some more sleep. I doubt you'll find many helpers that way. But you, Vladimir, could you, at least, help me? Me? I don't wake up that early unless I have to. But if I should somehow find myself waking up then, what good things should I think about? Well, for example, you could think about the little son I will be giving birth to. Your son. Think how delighted he will be to be kissed by the sun's rays, to see the pure and magnificent flowers all around him, and have the bushy-tailed squirrel play with him in this glade. Think how good it would be if all the other children in the world could forever be kissed by the warm sun, then nothing would make them sad. Then think about who you might say something glad to or give a smile to during the day ahead. And how good it would be if this marvelous world lasted forever, and what you could do, you, in particular, to bring this about. I'll think about our son. And I'll try to come out with other good thoughts. Only what's the point? You'll be thinking here, in the forest, while I'll be in an apartment in the city. That's only two of us. You say many people are needed. So until we get a lot of people involved, isn't it pointless for just the two of us to try? Even one person, Vladimir, is more than none. Two together are more than two apart. Later, after you write your book, more people will come along. I shall feel them and delight in each one. We shall learn to catch each other's feelings of the heart, understand and help each other through the dimension of the forces of light. Everything you say still has to be believed. I myself don't completely believe in this bright dimension, this domain of thoughts. You can't even prove it exists, because you can't touch it. Yet your scientists have come to the conclusion that thought is something tangible. They have, but since you still actually touch it, it's not something you can get completely set in your mind. But when you write your book, people will be able to touch it, they can hold it in their hands. Like a materialized thought. Again, you're carrying on about that book. I've told you, I don't believe in it either. Even less in your claim that you, with the help of certain combinations of letters known only to you, can arouse feelings in the reader, bright feelings yet, that will help the reader make some sense of it all. I told you how it works. Yes, you told me. But it still doesn't make me believe. If I try to write, I can't tell everything all at once. People will laugh at me. You know something, Anastasia, can I tell you in all honesty? Yes, tell me in all honesty. Only don't be offended, okay? I shall not be offended. Everything you've talked up to me I'm going to have to verify with our scholars and see what they say about it in various religious and modern teachings. There's a lot of different courses out there now, a lot of preachers. Go ahead and verify, by all means. And still, I feel you're a very kind person. Your philosophy is interesting, quite unusual. But if you compare your actions with those of others who are concerned about the soul, about ecology, well, frankly, you're way behind the rest. Why should you conclude that? Think about it. All the enlightened people, as you call them, have gone off by themselves at some point. Buddha went off for 7 years into the forest and set up a whole doctrinal platform, and he has a lot of followers throughout the world. Christ Jesus went off just for 40 days, and even now people are excited about his teachings. Christ Jesus went off by himself more than once, Anastasia pointed out. And he did a lot of thinking when he was traveling about. So, let's say more than 40 days, let's say a year even. The elders, who are now considered saints, were ordinary people who went into the forest to live in isolation for a time, then later monasteries were built on these sites, and a lot of followers arose, right? Yes, Vladimir, you are right. And here you've been living 26 years now in the forest, and you don't even have a single follower. You haven't come up with any platform. And here you're asking me to write a book. You're grasping at that like a straw. You dream of laying out your own conscience of signs in it. Well, if things aren't working out for you like with other leaders, maybe it's not even worth trying. There are others more capable than you who may well think up something without your input. Come on, why not get real and live more simply? I'll help you adapt to our world. Now you're not offended, eh? No, I am not offended. Then I'll tell you the whole truth, right to the end. To help you get a hold of yourself. Goon. You have some extraordinary abilities, Anastasia, there's no doubt about that. You can pick up any information you want as easily as counting 1, 2, 3. But tell me now, when did you first become aware of that ray of yours? It was given to me right at the start, as it is to everybody. Only my awareness of it, and how to use it, that was something great-grandfather taught me by the time I was 6. So, does that mean at 6 years of age you were already able to see what was going on in our lives? You could analyze situations, help people, even treat illnesses at a distance? Yes, I could. Now, tell me, what have you been doing all the 20 years since? I have been telling you and showing you. I have been working with the people you call Dokniks. Trying to help them. All these 20 years, day in and day out? Yes, sometimes even at night, if I was not too tired. So, you've been acting like an obsessed fanatic, stubbornly holding on to the Dokniks all these years? Who made you do this? Nobody can make me. I did it of my own free will. After great-grandfather suggested it to me, I realized for myself what a good thing, how important it was. You know, I think your great-grandfather suggested the Dokniks to you because he felt sorry for you. After all, you grew up without your parents. He gave you the very easiest and simplest task. Now that he's seen you've begun to understand something greater, he's given you permission to work with other things. And to drop the Dokniks. But this other is connected with the people you call Dokniks. And I shall continue to help them. I love them very much and I shall never abandon them. Now that's what I call fanaticism. There's something in you that you don't have enough of to be a normal person. You must understand that. The Dokniks are far from being the most important people in our society. They have absolutely no influence at all over social development. Dachas and vegetable gardens. They're just small subsistence plots. It's where people go to relax after their hard work or when they go into retirement. And that's all. Do you understand? That's it. And if you, with all your colossal knowledge and phenomenal abilities, are only interested in Dokniks, you must have some kind of psychological disorder. I think I ought to take you to a psychotherapist. If you can get that disorder cured, then just maybe you'll really be in a position to help society. I very much want to help society. So then, let's go. I'll take you to a practicing psychotherapist at a good private clinic. You yourself said a global catastrophe could happen. This way you'll be able to help ecological movements, you'll be able to help science. But I shall be an even greater help if I stay here. All right, You can come back here later and start getting involved in more serious issues. What do you mean, more serious? You decide. Probably something connected, for example, with heading off an ecological disaster or a global catastrophe. By the way, do you have any idea when the latter might occur? There are localized disasters happening even now in various parts of the Earth. Mankind has been preparing everything and more for its own destruction for a long time now. But when will it happen on a global scale? When will the apocalypse come? It might occur in 2002, for example. But it can be prevented or delayed, as happened in 1992. You mean to say it might have come to pass in 1992? Yes, but they delayed it. Who are they? Who averted it? Who delayed it? A catastrophe on a global scale in 1992 was averted thanks to the Dokniks. What? There are all sorts of people all over the world who are working against global disaster. The 1992 catastrophe did not happen mainly thanks to the Russian Dokniks. And you, that means you. Even at 6 years old you were aware of the Dokniks' significance? Did you foresee it? You worked non-stop. You helped them. I understood the Dokniks' significance, Vladimir. Chapter 9. Doknik Day and an All-Earth holiday. But why Russian Dokniks in particular? What's the connection here? You see, Vladimir, even though the Earth is very large, it is very, very sensitive. Think of how big you are by comparison with a tiny mosquito. And yet, when a mosquito lands on you, you feel it through your skin. Earth also feels everything. When people pave it over with concrete and asphalt, when they cut down trees and burn the forests growing on it, when they pick and poke at its innards and sprinkle it with a powder called fertilizer, it feels the hurt. And yet still it loves people, as a mother loves her children. And the Earth tries to absorb into its depths all humanity's anger, and only when it no longer has the strength to hold it back, that anger explodes in the form of volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. The Earth needs our help. Tenderness and a loving attitude give it strength. The Earth may be large, but it is most sensitive. And it feels the tender caress of even a single human hand. Oh, how it feels and anticipates this touch. There was a time in Russia when the Earth was deemed to belong to everyone and therefore nobody in particular. So people did not think of it as their own. Then changes came in Russia. They began giving out tiny private plots to people to go with their dachas. It was no coincidence at all that these plots were extremely small, too small to cultivate with mechanized equipment. But Russians, yearning for contact with the Earth, took to them with joyous enthusiasm. They went to people both poor and rich. Because nothing can break man's connection with the Earth. After obtaining their little plots of land, people intuitively felt their worth. And millions of pairs of human hands began touching the Earth with love. With their hands, you understand, not with mechanized tools. Lots and lots of people touched the ground caressingly on these little plots. And the Earth felt this, it felt it very much. It felt the blessing touch of each individual hand upon it. And the Earth found new strength to carry on. So, what now? I queried. Should we erect a monument to every Doknik as the savior of the planet? Yes, Vladimir, they are saviors indeed. But that would be far too many monuments. I have it. Why not set up a 1 or 2 day national holiday? Dachnik Day, or an All-Earth Day, it could be designated in the calendar. Ooh, a holiday. Anastasia threw up her arms in elation. What a terrific idea indeed. A celebration. A happy and cheerful holiday that is something we definitely need. And you with that ray of yours can suggest to our government, to our deputies in the State Duma, that they pass the required legislation. I cannot get through to them. They are too busy with their daily routine. They have so many decisions to make, they have absolutely no time to think. Besides, there is not much point in my attempting to raise their conscious awareness. It would be difficult for them to accept a complete conscious picture of reality. They are not allowed to make any better resolutions than those they are passing at the moment. Who can stop the government or the president from so doing? You. The masses. The majority. As for correct decisions, they are what you call unpopular measures. Yes, you're right. We have democracy. The most important decisions are taken by the majority. The majority is always right. The greatest conscious awareness is always achieved first by individuals, Vladimir. It always takes the majority space of time to catch on. If that's true, then why do we need democracy, referendums? They are needed to serve as a shock absorber, to avoid sudden jerks. When these shock absorbers do not work, a revolution occurs. A revolutionary period is always a challenge for the majority. But a Dachnik Day? That's not revolution. What's wrong with it? The holiday like that is fine. It is needed. Definitely needed. It should be set up as quickly as possible. I shall think about how it can be done as quickly as possible. I'll help you. I know better which levers to pull in our world for the most effective results. I'll write to the papers. No, better still, I'll write about the Dachniks in that book of yours and ask people to send telegrams to the government and the Duma, requesting the establishment of a Dachnik Day as an all-earth holiday. Only what date should it be? The 23rd of July. Why the 23rd? It is an appropriate day. Also because it is your birthday, Vladimir. After all, this fantastic idea is all yours. That's great. So, we'll ask people to send telegrams asking for the 23rd of July as Dachnik Day and an all-earth holiday. And as soon as the telegrams start arriving at the Duma and people begin to wonder why people are sending them, you burst in with your ray. Burst in I shall. I shall burst in with all my might. And it will be a fine, bright and beautiful holiday. For everyone. Everyone will have such a good time and the whole earth will rejoice in its light. Why does everybody have to have a good time? This holiday's only for Dachniks, isn't it? We must see that everyone has a good time. This holiday will indeed begin in Russia. But then it will become the most fantastic holiday for the world as a whole. A marvelous holiday for the soul. And how will it be celebrated the first time in Russia? I inquired. Nobody will know what to make of it. Each one's heart will suggest on that day what he should do and how. I can visualize a general outline right now. Then Anastasia began talking, clearly enunciating each word. She talked with both speed and inspiration. It was all most extraordinary, the rhythm of her speech, the arrangement of her phrases, the pronunciation of her words. May all of Russia wake that day at dawn. May people alone, or with friends and family, come to the land and stand upon it with bare feet. Those who have their little plot of land, let them greet with praise the first rays of the sun amidst the shoots and seedlings they have planted. And touch each species with caressing hands. As the sun rises in the sky, let them pick and taste the fruit of their plantings, one from each variety, and that should suffice them up to the midday meal. Before the meal, let them tend their plots anew. Let each one ponders their life and joy, and what they are destined to do. Let each remember their family and friends with love. And ponder why their planted seeds are growing and designate the purpose of every plant. And even before the midday feast, everyone should spend at least an hour by themselves. It is not important how or where or exactly when, but they should be alone for a spell to spend at least an hour in an effort to look within themselves. Let the whole family gather for the meal in the middle of the day. Those living at home and those who have come from far away. Let dinner be prepared from what the earth has borne for the hour of the repast. Let everyone bring to the whole table whatever is desired by his heart and soul. Let all the family members look each other lovingly in the eye. And let the eldest bless the table together with the youngest. And let the table all around with quiet conversation resound. There should be good words spoken about all those who sit beside you. The scene Anastasia described was so extraordinarily vivid that I could feel myself sitting at the table, with people all around. I found myself caught up in the celebration. I was believing in it, or, rather, I was participating in it. And I felt led to contribute a feature of my own. There should be a toast before dinner. Everyone raises their glass. Let's drink to the earth, let's drink to love. I actually felt I was holding the glass in my hand. Then suddenly she broke into my reverie. Vladimir, please let there be no alcoholic poison on the table. The glass vanished from my hand. Stop it, Anastasia. Don't spoil the celebration. Well, since you have your mind set on it, let there be some wine from berries, but this must be imbibed in very small sips. All right, wine it is, then. Just so as not to change our habits all at once. And after the dinner, then what shall we do? Let the people return to the cities and towns, having gathered the fruit they have grown on their little plots of ground. Let them bear it in baskets and share it with everyone at home who does not have plots of their own. Oh, how many positive feelings will come from this day! They will bring about the healing of many people's diseases. Diseases which threatened with death and those not erased by time will simply vanish. Let those who are incurably or even slightly ill go out and meet the flood of darkness returning from their plots. The rays of love and of good, along with the fruits of their labors, will heal diseases. Look and see. Look at the city's main railway station, where floods of people are arriving with baskets of flowers. Look and see the people's eyes glimmering with kindness, joy, and peace. Anastasia was virtually glowing with radiance, as she became more and more inspired with the idea of the holiday. Her eyes were no longer merely shining with joy, they were literally sparkling with a pale blue luminescence. The expression on her face was changing, yet still remained joyful, as though a mighty flood of images of this celebration were rushing through her brain. All at once, she fell silent. Then, bending one leg at the knee and lifting up her right arm, she sprang from the ground with a tremendous recoil, virtually taking flight like an arrow shot from the earth. She leaped almost as high as the bottom branches of the cedars. Upon landing, she waved her arm, clapped her hands, and a bluish glow flooded the glade. All the words Anastasia now uttered seemed to be echoed by each tiny bug and blade of grass and each majestic cedar. Her voice sounded as though it were being reinforced by a hidden power. Even though her words were not that loud, it seemed as though they could be heard by every vein running through the unfathomable expanse of the universe. Mother Russia will greet crowds of guests on that day. They are all of the earth as Atlanteans were born. Like prodigal sons, they shall return. On that day, all over Russia, let everyone awake and greet the dawn. Let all the strings of the harp of the universe make cheerful and swell with resonant sound. Let all the bards sing and tell with joyful tongue and play guitars in all the streets, in every yard around. And he who is too old will once again be young, as many, many years ago. And I, Anastasia, will I be young once more? Both you and I, Vladimir, shall be young, and people will feel young for the very first time. And the old shall write letters to their children. And children to their parents. And infants taking their very first steps on earth shall enter a better world of joy and mirth. And on that day no child shall feel insulted. Adults shall treat children as their equals. And all the gods on the high will to the earth descend. And will calm men themselves to take on simple forms. And God himself, the universal God, will be delighted. May you rejoice too in love, making all the earth so bright. Anastasia was really getting carried away with images of the holiday. She was whirling around the glade in a fiery dance, becoming more and more inspired at every step. Stop. Stop. I cried to Anastasia, suddenly realizing that she was taking it all too seriously. She was not merely uttering words. I now realized her every word and novel turn of phrase was actually a visualization. She was visualizing images of vision. And with her typical stubbornness, she will go on visualizing and dreaming about it until the dream turns into reality. Like a die-hard fanatic, she will dream. She will give her all to those Dokniks, just as she has done for the past 20 years. And I cried out to stop her. What's going on? Don't you understand? All that stuff about a holiday, it's all just in fun. I was just teasing. Anastasia suddenly stopped in her tracks. No sooner did I catch a glimpse of her than I felt a big lump in my throat from the look on her face. Her face looked bewildered like that of a child. She looked at me with pain and pity, as though I were an unremitting attacker. And almost in a whisper, she started saying, Vladimir, I took it seriously. I have already visualized it all. And to life's chain of events, people's forthcoming telegrams have already interwoven a link. The order of events will be broken without them. I have accepted your words, believed them, and brought them to pass. You were speaking of the holiday in telegrams sincerely. Do not take back the words that you have spoken. Just help me with the telegrams so that I may, as you said, offer assistance with my ray. Okay, I'll try, only don't panic, maybe it'll end up that nobody will even want to send the telegrams. There will be people who will comprehend. They will feel it in the government and in your Duma as well, and a holiday there will be. It will arise. Time will tell. Look here. And once again celebration images passed before my eyes. There. I've written about it. Now you can go and do as your heart and soul dictates.